So I'm wondering why would Australian people will be a little bit against China? Because for them, it doesn't really matter, right? It's not like in Taiwan, because we are so close, we have to deal with the issue of China immediately. But for Australian people, like, why would they care so much about this issue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, we actually have a huge Chinese population. So we have more than 1 million people, who have come from China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. But also, I mean, I think for many years, people in Australia quite like China. Xi Jinping came to Australia in 2014 and did this tour, and all the school kids would come out and wave Chinese flags.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that would never happen now. But I think,
I'm surprised to hear that.
I'm a little bit surprised.
I know.
Wow.
He gave a speech in our parliament, and this could just never happen now. But I think, since 2017, there's been a lot of negative press about China and the issues in Xinjiang and Hong Kong, and I think people have sort of woken up to the fact that you can't really trust China, and I think people are actually quite nervous about China, and people in Australia actually are very concerned about Taiwan, and that's out of self-interest because, they believe, what will China stop at? Will it eventually try and do something in Australia?
And they're having really close ties with Solomon Islands.
Yes,
days, right?
So Solomon Islands was a big election issue because China did this security deal with the Solomon Islands. They might build a naval base here. So the politicians, our opposition party was accusing our government of dropping the ball on the Pacific, because Australia used to be very close to these Pacific countries. But in the last 10 years, we haven't paid much attention to them. We haven't, our aid funding has dropped off. So in a way, we sort of let them down, and countries like the Solomons have gone to China for help instead.
Yeah. Oh, wow. But you were talking about how Xi Jinping's issues, what he did to Hong Kong, what he did to Xinjiang. And in the book, you say that you went to all these places, right? You also went to Tibet, didn't you? Or no,
I couldn't get into Tibet. So in China, the foreign correspondents aren't allowed into Tibet. But I went I went to places in Sichuan, which was sort of near Tibet. But Xinjiang was the weirdest trip I've ever done. It was...
You went to Xinjiang with all the foreign correspondents.
Yeah,
right?
So it was sort of like this propaganda tour. So the government invited us, and we had this debate at work. It's like, should we go on this or not? And in the end...
So you guys knew it was a propaganda tour?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
of course,
so we knew we were going to be...
So you can write a book about it.
Yeah. And then we thought, it's too hard to go independently. It's like, well, let's just go there and see what they're going to show us.
Did they take care of everything, like the accommodations, the plane tickets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything.
They just come.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So do you need to be locked up? Did you need to be locked up in the hotel room as well at night?
Yeah, sort of. So me and another guy who lives in China, in the second week we were just really fed up. So we just started going out on our own at night, and they told us not to, but we just did
you
anyway.
You guys sneaked out?
And we snuck out, but we were followed. So there were these two plainclothes police guys just following us around the streets.
You really think white people can get away with a lot of stuff?
That's right.
And you think you wouldn't stand out in Urumqi?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, the first night we snuck out, we actually we jumped in a taxi that was outside the hotel, and we took off, and we just went to some bar, and they were freaking out because they lost us, so they couldn't find us. But it took about half an hour, and they found us. So someone came to the bar and sat down.
They track your phone.
So they must have been tracking our phone or using security cameras or something. The only two white guys running around Xinjiang. But it was sort of for journalism, it was a bit of a waste of time because we both agreed. We said we can't talk to anyone. If we go and interview any Uyghurs hanging out in the streets, they're going to get harassed
and they were getting
afterwards
trouble,
by the police. They'll get
Yeah.
into trouble. So we didn't actually talk. We couldn't talk to anyone, but it was good to observe what was going on.
But
Would you like to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, what did you see there?
Well, I mean, on this, the whole trip was insane. It was like, have you seen that movie, The Truman Show, where everything's fake, like the town's fake? And they were just taking us, into these villages, and then 100 Uyghurs would come in and start singing and dancing, and so they were sort of trying to present this image that everyone's really happy, and then they'd take us to these fake re-education camps. So you'd drive out into the desert, and there'd sort of be this huge building there, which they said was a school, and then they had, there were were all these flowers in the garden and people baking cookies in the kitchen.
What?
And then you go into these classroom and all these young Uyghur kids are doing their lessons.
Actually, sorry, I got a question. How did you know it was a fake re-education camp? Did you know that before you went in?
Well, I kind of suspected they were, because they said we're going to take you to the camps, and we just thought.
Did you say the camp? Did they say the camp?
No, they don't like that word. They call them,
they say school.
Vocational training centers. So they got really angry when we said re-education camps. They said you can't use that word.
In this at this fake camp. What does it look like? Does it have walls around it with barbed wire?
So they have like quite low walls, but they do have barbed wire and gates.
Even the fake one have barbed wire.
Yeah,
That's weird.
so they could be locked in at night. And we went into some of the dormitories, and they did have like prison doors. So I think these kids probably did lived there, and they probably locked them in at night. And the weird thing was, so they would walk into a classroom and they said, hey guys, you can interview anyone in the classroom you like. So you'd approach a random person, and then they'd have this rehearsed script. So this one guy he was really nervous and he's trembling, and he was saying, my name is blah, 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 and I'm a Uyghur and I'm a heathen. I had bad thoughts about non-Muslims and I wanted to kill them, and I'm here voluntarily and I'm very happy here and I love China. And it was so scripted that you just knew, right, he's been told to say this. And it really upset me. It's like they were using these own people to sort of push their own propaganda, and they were sort of forced into doing this. So, of course, no one ever confirmed it was fake, but you've got to go with your gut instinct sometimes. You just knew. Yeah.
How many of you were there during this trip?
It was like 30 journalists. 30? And they were from
all foreigners?
All over the world. Yeah. So a lot of Middle East, a lot of journalists from Muslim countries, strangely, but from sort of all over the world.
But did you talk to those reporters from the Muslim countries, like what their thoughts were?
And
what their reactions?
Some of them it was really strange. So the group of journalists ended up splitting into two groups, and half believed what they were being told by the Chinese government. So Xinhua journalists would be there and they'd interview these foreign journalists, and they were going, yeah, Xinjiang's great. Nothing looks wrong here. And then the other half of us, the more cynical ones, we were really angry, going, this is bullshit. This is propaganda. And you're speaking to the Chinese media and you're feeding this machine. So then the journalists started fighting.
Really?
Not physically.
But just like
But
arguing.
At night time, we'd have a couple of drinks and have really angry conversations saying,
I'm curious, who are the ones who... Can you tell us like which don't name them, but name the news agency? Is that okay? Can you name the agency?
Xinhua, right?
But Xinhua obviously is
the propaganda media.
They weren't part of the trip, but they were there filming us, and
you became part of the propaganda tool, pretty much.
So look, it was 3 or 4 years ago now. So I remember someone from Italy was very supportive. Someone from India was quite supportive.
India,
yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Whereas there was me and an Irish guy, and probably the American guys, and we were the most cynical.
So
but a lot of
those people really bought in what
they did.
Chinese government?
It was shocking.
Really?
But none of them had worked in China before, so they didn't kind of know how the system works there.
They never saw any theater in their life or what?
Yeah. So, but it was kind of upsetting because it just made me realize China's propaganda is working. They're going to go back and write.
Because like those people go home and write how great China is. Because we've seen those reports, right?
Yeah.
And I think it hurts a lot of Uyghur minorities who are overboard seeking refuge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was very bizarre.
It's mind-blowing. I can't believe that people actually, after seeing that and bought into it.
Yeah.
Because we always assumed that propaganda never worked, and we always joked about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we should take a break.
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
My mind just exploded. Wow.